Please like the video and share it so that it reaches many more people and you get sawaba, or rewards from Allah. This could be a sawabe jariyah or continuous reward for you long after you are gone.
Volume 7, Book 72, number 756. Narrated by Ibn Umar. Allah's apostle wore a gold ring or a silver ring and placed its stone towards the palm of his hand and had the name, Muhammad, the apostle of Allah, engraved on it. The people also started wearing gold rings like it, but when the Prophet saw them wearing such rings, he threw away his own ring and said, "I will never wear it," and then wore a silver ring, whereupon the people too started wearing silver rings. Ibn Umar added, "After the Prophet, Abu Bakr wore the ring, and then Umar, and then Uthman wore it till it fell in the Aris well from Uthman bin Umar. Allah's apostle wore a gold ring, then he threw it and said, 'I will never wear it.' The people also threw the gold rings." Volume 7, Book 72, number 757. Narrated by Anas bin Malik. That he saw a silver ring on the hand of Allah's apostle for one day only. Then the people had silver rings made for themselves and wore it. On that, Allah's apostle threw away their rings as well. For the details of this hadith, see Fatah al-Bari, Volume 12, page 438. Volume 7, Book 72, number 758. Narrated by Humayd. Anas was asked, "Did the Prophet wear a ring?" Anas said, "Once he delayed the Isha prayer till midnight. Then he came, facing us, as if Elam now looking at the glitter of his ring, and said, 'The people have offered their prayers and slept, but you have been in prayer as you have been waiting for it.'" Volume 7, Book 72, number 759. Narrated by Anas. The ring of the Prophet was of silver, and its stone was of silver too. Volume 7, Book 72, number 760. Narrated by Sahl. A woman came to the Prophet and said, "I have come to present myself to you, for marriage." She kept standing for a long period, during which period the Prophet looked at her carefully. When she stayed for a long period, a man said to the Prophet, "If you are not in need of her, then marry her to me." The Prophet said, "Have you got anything to give her, as mahr?" The man said, "No." The Prophet said, "Go to your house, and search for something." The man went and came back to say, "By Allah, I could not find anything." The Prophet said, "Go again and search for something, even if it be an iron ring." He went again and came back saying, "No, by Allah, I could not get even an iron ring." The man had only an izzah and had no rida, upper garment. He said, "I will give her my izzah as mahr." On that the Prophet said, "Your izzah. If she wears it, nothing of it will remain on you, and if you wear it, nothing of it will be on her." The man went aside and sat down. When the Prophet saw him leaving, after a while, he called back and asked, "How much Quran do you know, by heart?" He said, "I know such and such surahs," naming some surahs. The Prophet said, "I marry her to you for the amount of Quran you know, by heart." Volume 7, Book 72, number 761. Narrated by Anas bin Malik. Allah's apostle wanted to write a letter to a group of people or some non-Arabs. It was said to him, "They do not accept any letter unless it is stamped." So the Prophet had a silver ring made for himself, and on it was engraved, Muhammad, the Apostle of Allah. As if I am now looking at the glitter of the ring on the finger, or in the palm, of the Prophet. Volume 7, Book 72, number 762. Narrated by Ibn Umar. Allah's Apostle had a silver ring made for himself, and it was worn by him on his hand. Afterwards it was worn by Abu Bakr, and then by Umar, and then by Uthman till it fell in the Aras well. On that ring was engraved, Muhammad, the Apostle of Allah. Volume 7, Book 72, number 763. Narrated by Anas. The Prophet got a ring made for himself and said, I have got a ring made for myself, and engraved a certain engraving on it, so none of you should get such an engraving on his ring. I saw the glitter of the ring on his little finger. Volume 7, Book 72, number 764. Narrated by Anas bin Malik. When the Prophet intended to write to the Byzantines, it was said to him, those people do not read your letter unless it is stamped. So the Prophet took a silver ring and got Muhammad, the Apostle of Allah, engraved on it, as if I am now looking at its glitter in his hand. Volume 7, Book 72, number 765. Narrated by Abdullah. The Prophet had a golden ring made for himself, and when he wore it, he used to turn its stone toward the palm of his hand. So the people too had gold made for themselves. The Prophet then ascended the pulpit, and after glorifying and praising Allah, he said, I had it made for me, but now I will never wear it again. He threw it away, and then the people threw away their rings too. Juwayriya, a sub-narrator, said, I think Anas said that the Prophet was wearing the ring in his right hand. Volume 7, Book 72, number 766. Narrated by Anas bin Malik. Allah's Apostle took a silver ring and had Muhammad, the Apostle of Allah, engraved on it. The Prophet then said to us, I have a silver ring with Muhammad, the Apostle of Allah, engraved on it, so none of you should have the same engraving on his ring. Volume 7, Book 72, number 767. Narrated by Anas. That when Abu Bakr became the Caliph, he wrote a letter to him, and stamped it with the Prophet's ring, and the engraving of the ring was in 3 lines, Muhammad in 1 line, Apostle in another line, and Allah in a 3rd line. Anas added, the ring of the Prophet was in his hand, and after him, in Abu Bakr's hand, and then in Umar's hand after Abu Bakr. When Uthman was the Caliph, once he was sitting at the well of Aras. He removed the ring from his hand, and while he was trifling with it, dropped into the well. We kept on going to the well with Uthman for 3 days looking for the ring, and finally the well was drained, but the ring was not found. Volume 7, Book 72, number 768. Narrated by Ibn Abbas. I offered the Eid prayer with the Prophet, and he offered prayer before the Khutbah sermon. Ibn Abbas added, after the prayer the Prophet came towards the rows of the women and ordered them to give alms, and the women started putting their big and small rings in the garment of Bilal. Volume 7, Book 72, number 769. Narrated by Ibn Abbas. The Prophet came out on the day of Eid and offered a 2-rakat prayer, and he did not pray any rak'ah before it, nor after it. Then he went towards the women and ordered them to give alms. The women started donating their earring and necklaces. Volume 7, Book 72, number 770. Narrated by Aisha. A necklace belonging to Asma was lost, and the Prophet sent men in its search. The time for the prayer became due and they were without ablution and they could not find water. Therefore they prayed without ablution. They mentioned that to the Prophet. Then Allah revealed the verse of Tayammum. Aisha added that she had borrowed the necklace from Asma.